This market seems like Groundhog's Day to you. I am going to say that you're probably right to a certain extent, but we are seeing a little bit of some differences here. So, what I'd like to do is go through a market analysis, and this is for the Coachella Valley, and this is for all. When I say all, I mean single family homes and condos. Now, overall, single family homes are doing slightly better than condos. So when we see everything kind of shifting a little bit more into buyer's favor, if you were to look just a single family, that's a little bit more balanced. It is not, it no longer favors the seller at all, to be honest. We are in a very balanced market. For the condos, it is actually almost on the line of like favors the buyers. I think sometimes when we're out there, we feel like everything's favoring the buyers, maybe. But one of the things I have noticed though is that if you are priced correctly, and maybe even better, you have to be a little bit better than correct right now. And I am reporting this on August 15th, 2026. So we are in the Coachella Valley, which means it is very hot here. We are not in season. July has been a little bit rough as far as showings and just having people, running around in general. I have managed to get one of my listings to have a good amount of showings, and another listing we actually got under contract in July, but that is not necessarily the norm. So the other thing that we're seeing happening too is that, we might see people coming on the market later in the year. So, as far as right now, let's take a closer look at this because I find it a little bit interesting that what we're seeing is from 2026, and I'm going to be focusing on that obviously the most here. So, let's just dig into this a little bit more. So, if we're looking at 2025 versus 2026, the actual sales went down. They went down by 8.4%. Now, this is for July. So if you notice the sales for the previous month, which is in June, they've gone down almost 20%. Well, a lot of the May sales were closing in June. And June did not have as many people signing contracts. So then once you get into July, this is a natural seasonal thing. So don't let that one freak you out at all. The change of year over year is more important. So we have gone down a little bit in sales. However, if you notice, we've also gone down in inventory. So if you factor that out, I would say that we're probably, if we've gone down in inventory 22%, but we've only gone down in sales by 8.4%. That's probably a good sign, right? So, you have a lot less homes on the market, which is interesting. But then the sales didn't go down in commiseration with that, right? They only went down a little bit. So I would say more homes ratio-wise are actually selling. So I think that's actually a pretty good thing, which would also be why if we look at months of supply. So if you've seen my videos before, and if you have, and you like them and you have not yet subscribed, I would love a subscribe or at least a like on this video or any ones that you actually like. It does help the algorithm find the people that are looking to buy and sell the Coachella Valley. And of course, it would make me very happy and it would impress my kids. They might think them. So yeah, that'd be awesome too. Anyway, so you look at months of supply. So if you've seen my videos before, months of supply is how many months would it take at the current rate of sales to, in other words, how many pending homes are there? How many homes are under contract right now versus the homes on the market? So if there's 10 homes on the market and there's 5 homes under contract, it would then take 2 months to sell off those 10 homes if we sell them 5 at a time, if that makes sense. So months of inventory, the smaller they are, so a 0 to 4, give or take 0 to 3, is generally considered a seller's market. So obviously, supply and demand, we have low supply and the demand, even on a lower demand, it's still such a low supply. The demand is stronger, and therefore the whoever's selling the product, in case the home, is going to be in the stronger position. Now, if you're looking at 4 to 6 months of inventory, you're looking at a balanced market, generally speaking, and 6 months or more means It's a buyer's market. All right. So right now we're looking at last year. It was a buyer's market. It was just dipping into a buyer's market here for months of supply at 6.7. Now, here's the good news. We've cleared that out by almost 2 months. So same time year over year, that's a really good sign. So months of supply improved by 25%. So that's good. And I am seeing, even here in August, in fact, one of my good friends in real estate, he said he has had his busiest August ever in real estate. And here again, and actually a lot of the country, people are surprised. Summer is actually pretty slow. So if you're actually doing pretty well in the summertime, that's a good sign. So he said he's having his best August ever. I have found that August has been, although quieter than other months like April, it has still been relatively busy. So that's just anecdotally what we're seeing, and that kind of lines up with the numbers as well. So days on market has stayed exactly the same. Interesting. Now 72. Again, if you watched my videos before, you've probably seen me talk about the fact that when you're looking at days on market, that doesn't count, at least for our multiple listing service. It does not count the days when it was maybe listed before, maybe with another agent, maybe with the same agent, the listing canceled or expired, and then they waited a little bit and they went back on the market for whatever reason, whether it was strategy, whether it was like, we're just not sure if we're going to sell anymore, and then, yeah, let's go ahead and sell. Any number of things. That 72 number, if I were to make a guess, and it would take me a while to go through this because you have to kind of go through it manually. I don't know of a good way to do it, although maybe I should ask my AI agent how to do this. I could probably figure it out. But to go through all the data and to look at the days on market for past listings, if you were to factor in how many days, like somebody had it on the market from November of 2025 until March of 2026, and then they took it off the market, and then they put it back on the market in April 20th of 2026, and it's still on the market, okay? And then it sold. That is not the same as 72 days on market. That is 72 plus the other, 90 or 120 or however many days happened before. So if I were to make a guess, I would say, so right now the days on market of 72 is really telling you how once that property, the properties that are on the market right now, that's how many days on the market for the current listing. So days on market was unchanged from the same time last year. So to be honest, for this particular report, because I don't put these together, I don't know if they're counting from when it's for all the active ones, or they're just talking about the ones that have sold. I suspect it's the ones that have sold, because 72, I think that would be a lot higher. So 72 days on market is probably closer to 180. Honestly, it's probably double that, because my guess is that a lot of these homes, and I know because whenever I run comparables for people, I always look at the comparable properties, but then I go look at their history. It's like, did it sell in 20 days? No, it was listed for 200 days before that. Then they came back on the market at the price that finally sold. So if you're looking at 72 days on market, it probably means when the listing finally got to the price that was going to actually sell. And right now, it's lower than people think. And weirdly, it's not necessarily because the values have gone down, because ironically, they've gone up a bit. It's that people still have that, generally speaking, and maybe their particular neighborhood is still going through an adjustment period, or you still have this kind of 2022 mentality or 2021 where we feel like, well, we should be worth more. Because I remember when my neighbor sold for $750, and now this agent's telling me I should put my house on the market for $550. Now, I could tell you I'm doing the same thing. Now, when I saw the house across the street that was just like mine sell several years ago, 3 years plus ago, at $750, I thought, wow, that they way overpaid. They way overpaid. So as a real estate agent, I knew that. But if I wasn't paying attention to real estate all the time and I just happened to notice that that house sold for $750, if I had a real estate agent come in today and I've been living my life since then and tell me my house is only worth 550 because my particular house, that is the exact situation that is happening. But I saw it coming. But if you're just living your life and doing other things and you're not like me and like you're in real estate every day, I could totally see where that would just blow your socks off, like you in a bad way. Like you'd be like, oh my God, what? It's gone down that much? No. That inflated number that the people happened to hit just at the height of the market was just that. It was an inflated number. And as the numbers have adjusted in some neighborhoods, because ours, again, if you've heard me talk about this before, ours is short-term rental heavy. And then when the short-term rentals started to get oversaturated, so real quick, they got oversaturated. So then the short-term rental owners were not making as much as they suspected they would make because there was too much competition. So there you are, supply and demand. There's too much competition. Plenty of people still renting Airbnbs, but too much competition. So they're finding, wow, I can't make money on this house I just spent $750,000 on. Not even close to the amount of money I thought I was going to make. Shoot, I better rent it or sell it. And then all of those people kind of came back on the market at the same time. First, maybe they tried to do a long-term rental. Maybe they just tried to keep going. Maybe they thought it would pick up a little bit more with the Airbnbs. But let me tell you, a lot of those have cleared out. But as we've had to watch this adjustment happen, this kind of shift downwards, we are really basically where we probably should have been for a 6-year, what we have made between like when for us personally, for when we bought it in 2020 to when we would be selling it in 2026. So if we watch that happen in a normal market, we probably have seen a good amount adjustment, right? A normal is about 4% per year. Okay. So these 20% swings were wildly out of out of the norm. So anyway, something to keep in mind as far as that's concerned. So when you see something like that, it's probably in a neighborhood, and I see this a lot in the neighborhoods that just were unfettered, as many short-term rentals as you want, and then those kind of grew out of control, and now we're coming back to a more realistic number, whereas other neighborhoods that did not allow those, you probably saw grow, unless there was some other situation with that particular neighborhood, they're probably growing at a little more of a steady clip. They had a big run up, I'm sure, but then they just kind of kept going up or maybe flat, up and to the right, give or take. And then some of us have had to basically take the overinflated price, pop that balloon, and come back to maybe where we should have been in the first place. So to me, buying a home 6 years ago at 380 and then being able to turn around and sell it at 550 seems very reasonable. Okay, so I don't know, long story long, sorry about that. But that really is what you need to consider so if you're somebody who's looking at selling your home and you're hearing these numbers and you want to know like what happened, that's what happened. So, and of course, your particular situation could be different. Your particular neighborhood could be different. If you are in the Coachella Valley, I can definitely help you understand where your values are and why. If you are outside of the Coachella Valley, I have a huge network of agents that I have met and worked with over the years in different coaching groups. So I know that they're out there. They're actively trying to get their information correct and they're actively trying to do the best job for their client. But I've met a lot of agents all across the country that I have some great relationships with that I can almost guarantee you I can find you somebody close by to you as well. So just something to keep in mind. Of course, not every single nook and cranny, but if I don't, I can usually find somebody close to you and say, hey, you are here. Can you find me somebody over here and they can help me? So if you want your neighborhood specific, even if I can't help you because you're not in the Coachella Valley, I can probably find you somebody who can give you some really good numbers. If you are in the Coachella Valley, though, let me know because I am more than happy to do a neighborhood specific or zip code specific or anything that you would like. I can definitely tailor that just for you. So let's go back to a little bit more of our market stats here. Let's look at our average price per square foot. It has gone almost 5%. So it went from $400 a square foot to $420 a square foot. And that also, if you consider the fact that we have, you know what I should have done before I did this was I should have pulled the average square footage. Usually what we're seeing when we see price per square foot go up like that, and 5% is a pretty good clip considering the median sales price only went up 0.6%. But usually when we see the price per square foot went up 4.9%, but the overall median sale price only went up 0.6%. Again, one is average and one is median, but it still actually shouldn't. Probably the reason would be that people are buying smaller houses because that's what they can afford, right? So as people are going from maybe the $600,000 range and now they're more comfortable in the lower fives, well, that would make sense. So maybe that most sought after price point, people are paying a little bit more for that, but it's a smaller home. So that is probably what we're seeing here. I have to pull some numbers to see if that's exactly right, but usually that's what that means. As far as a sales to list price ratio, so from the original listing, and again, that's just for that one listing. So if I list my home at $599, and then I come down to $575, and then I come down to five, whatever, and then somebody finally makes the offer on that price or on that listing, that's what we're talking about. So that sales price to list price, that's like, what was it listed at the day that they got the offer, and how much was that offer? How much did it close for, right? We don't care about offers that have closed. How much did it close for? So that is 95.9%. It is unchanged from last year to this year. And most markets, you see 96, 97, 98%. That's pretty typical. Now, as far as the original list price to the eventual sales price, you can see in 2025, it was slightly lower at 92.4%, slightly lower from the original sales price. So they had to come down a little bit more, as you can see there, about 3.5% down from their original price to get to where they ended up getting the offer. So once they got to the right price, they got 95.9% of that price on average. But from the original price, that's why it's so important. Price it from the beginning. Again, and sometimes it's like throwing a dart at a board. I mean, there are definitely some times in the market, and I think the end of February into March, when we started seeing the Iran war, was not going to just be a quick one and done kind of thing. It affected the market when there's kind of chaos going on and things that we cannot control. So geopolitical issues that are happening that can be big enough that people just kind of go, well, I don't know what's going to happen here. That can actually just stop people from decision making. So at that point, it was like I was seeing stuff where I was like, I'm pretty sure it's this price and I'm pretty good at that. But when these issues pop up, it can be difficult to pinpoint. Sometimes you need the market to talk to you for a little while, and then you have to come down. You have to find where that market price is. But if things are pretty stable, I can usually pinpoint that number pretty well. But if we still start up too high, and I never want to leave money on the table for people, but as far as me and what I'm going to be doing for my house, I'm going to be starting it lower because that's what I tell people to do. And the reason I tell people to do that is because if you walk into a house and it's been on the market for 2 days, and this house seems better priced than every other house we've been looking at, then human nature is to go, I really like this house and I want this house and it's only been on the market for 2 days. You know what? I think maybe we should offer at least full price, maybe even a little bit more, because I really want this house. If the house has been on the market and you're looking at it, and even if you love it, and it's like, how many days has it been on the market and it's 60, you're having a different conversation. It's just sheer basic economics. Somebody walks through, they're like, well, I wonder what's wrong with it, or I bet we could come in lower. These are the conversations that I'm having with my buyers when we're walking through homes that have been listed for 60 days versus 2 days. So I think it's really important, if you can, hit that number right out of the gate. So that's why you're seeing that when you finally do get down, that number from the sales price to original list price is a little bit lower. So, and I would also venture to say that when you look at these properties, the sales to original price versus the sales to actual, where they ended up at, you're probably going to see a lower days on market if they had to keep coming down, or lower days on market if they sorted up the way. So, new listings coming on has gone down. That's good news. That's good news, right? New listings coming on in July, and then ones that went to contract went up. Okay. So less new listings, less inventory, more people under contract. All of that is good. We are still in a balanced market, meaning it's not favoring the sellers. It's maybe slightly favoring the buyers, but a good house is still going to sell. So that's a good news. Because back in the day, back in say like, after the Great Recession, I mean, there was so many homes on the market. There was just no way to differentiate yourself. It was really tough to get your home sold in that market. And now it's just a matter of get it priced right, get it presented correctly. If you had to come down maybe more than you thought you did, because we did have a little bit of an absorption of some of the maybe overinflated pricing, you got to come down a little bit more than you thought you did. You've probably still made money if you've owned it more than 7 years, 6 years, 5 years even. You probably still made plenty of money, most likely. But if you haven't, then it might be a little bit tougher to sell. But here's the thing. The reason we're probably seeing less listings on the market is because there are a lot of people. That's the big difference between this and the Great Recession. That's why we're more balanced and didn't just go into a heavy buyer's market, right? Is because we have right now a situation where people have equity. They have low mortgage rates. There's a lot of people who still have rates under 5%, under 4%. There's a lot of people whose house payment is very affordable, okay? The people who are trying to buy now, yes, of course, the affordability factor is tough because the rates are still high. We thought we would see more rate reductions. We thought we'd be closer to 6% this year. That was the general feeling. The things that have changed that, and you can ask any economist, this is not a political statement, this is just economics, are tariffs and the Iran war, which has also inflated energy prices, all of which to say we have continued to have higher inflation. Regardless of where it's coming from, those two things have largely spurned that on. And of course, as far as our country is concerned, how do you get food to your store? It gets transported. That affects energy costs, right? So those prices go up too. So all of these couple of factors are keeping our inflation too high, which means we're not going to see the interest rates come down until the inflation comes down. Now, when it does, hopefully we see the rates come down as well, and that we're looking pretty good. But in the meantime, we are not getting those rate cuts like we thought we were going to get, like we kind of started seeing at the first of the year. At the first of the year, things were actually going pretty good. Thought we were going to have a whole different outlook for 2026, but that's what I mean by Groundhog's Day. 2026 is largely felt like 2025. And as far as the number of overall transactions, we're probably going to be right about the same, which last year was the lowest number of transactions since 1995. So it's kind of a real estate recession in that fact, but it's just not as bad for the sellers as far as the prices. But again, that also puts the buyers, right? But it's not as bad for the sellers as pricing as it was back then. We had such a big shift down, a dramatic drop in home prices from a dramatic rise. This time we had a dramatic rise, but not so much of a dramatic fall because again, we have people with equity in their homes who can sell their homes, who own their outright. In a lot of cases, there's way more people right now who own their home outright. And if they're looking at this and going, I don't need to sell, that's probably why we're not seeing new listings. The sellers are looking and going, unless I have to go somewhere, I'm just not that. So anyway, that's sort of my TED Talk on the market in August of 2026. I hope this helped. If you have any questions about the market in general, any questions about this report, if you would like a copy of this report, I'm going to leave it in the description below if you're watching this on YouTube. And you can, you'll just download it. You don't have to give me any information. Download it. Take a look at it. If you do want anything specific as far as your role is concerned, I'm always happy to help with that. And if we haven't met before, I probably should have mentioned this at the beginning. My name is Lisa Angel. I'm with LPT Realty. I've been a real estate agent for over 28 years, so I've seen a lot. That's why I'm talking about the Great Recession, and I was in that too. And I'm here to help you live your best desert life in the Coachella Valley. And again, answer any questions you have for real estate. So have a great day. Thanks for watching. If you have any questions or any thoughts on the market, leave them in the comments below. I'd love to hear what they are.